get ready for the last of my morning. I made a video yesterday about atheists, and I got a very long comment. I made a minute long video, and dude gave me a 5 paragraph explanation of how wrong I am by just telling me that everything I said was made up, and therefore he doesn't have to think about whether it's true or not. And so I didn't read all. I'm gonna be honest with you. Ugly comments. I don't read. I'll skim them, but I'll give you your first paragraph, your opening paragraph to establish who you are. Right? That's called making a first impression. I'll let you make a first impression. But if what you're going to tell me is that I'm just wrong, and then you're going to make up reasons, and if most of your reasons about why I'm wrong are just that I'm wrong a priori, and then you have to fill in the reasons, I understand that what has happened is that I've said something to you that's so new to you and so right that you have to dismiss it instantly. I understand what's going on. You don't understand what's going on, and that's okay, because what I've just done is accidentally assaulted and weakened your worldview. And so it's an ethical quandary for the philosopher and for the secularist. But I'm not a philosopher, and I'm not a secularist, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Not like I did when I was a philosopher. I was worried about you. I put you and your worldview ahead of my work. I made preserving what you had built for yourself and what you had made of yourself ahead of almost saying and doing what's best for you, which is a sort of parental position that I've put myself in. But it's less of a putting myself here. Aha! I'd lost my scarf. Oops. Sorry about that. I'd lost my scarf, and that was really getting to me. Ooh. These longer format videos, I understand that they don't get views. Whew. They don't get views like my shorts. I know that. I understand that. I understand why. I get that it's that part of the year, that time of the year where we don't spend as much time as we could on the things that matter. Ooh. This is a time of year that's really, for most people, about spending money. It's about spending money. It's about proving you've got the means to spend money, really. Ooh. the Christmas holiday, the gift-giving holiday, especially the gift-giving aspects of these holidays are about, they're really about showing the people around them that you're better than what you are. You're better than them, especially. Ugh. And really, I opened this today not so much to talk about that guy. He's, if you've never heard an atheist say that the reason they're atheist is because they know more, and that's why they disbelieve. They know enough to know better. Then you're not actually talking to atheists. So if you're gonna, and well, you're not talking to you're not talking to atheists from before the internet became ubiquitous. You're not talking to skeptical scientific atheists from before 2016. I don't know who you're talking to. I don't know. I definitely don't know who you're reading, because people like Dawkins. Richard Dawkins used to say that all the time. Stephen Novella and the scientific skeptics of The Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy used to say it all the time. It was a very real mantra. They don't say it anymore because people haven't been raised in church for 20 years. So you don't need to say it in order to impress teenagers. But I can remember being on, walking up that hill gets me out of breath, and I'm not embarrassed about that. I can remember being on Tool forum threads, music forum threads, back in the late 90s and the early aughts, before Reddit became a thing, before we could just invent our own worldviews and our own histories for our worldviews. I can remember back in the Heaven's Gate days of the internet, back in the GeoCities days of the internet, where in order to make an atheist claim, you couldn't just say, well, I disbelieve. His whole argument was that, his entire argument is that my saying that atheists are atheists because they understand better, they used to understand better, is false. That atheists are atheists just because they don't believe in God. Well, you used to come to that conclusion by thinking really hard. People used to come to that conclusion after trying to be religious and then realizing that, well, really it just comes down to efforts to control what is uncontrollable, and there are better ways to manipulate your mind into believing that you're controlling the uncontrollable than magic, is basically what the atheist and the skeptical position used to be. It doesn't have to take that position anymore because nobody's smart enough to argue anymore. No one's smart enough to fight anymore. And atheism has become about oppositional defiance. So now it's just a worldview. Now it's just a fatty, resistant, oppositional, defiant worldview, where all you have to say in order to be an atheist, in order to make money being an atheist, is that you don't believe, and you don't even have to know why you don't believe. It's an oppositional fad worldview. Like Satanism in the 1700s, 1600s. I meant to say 17th century. Satanism was a fad worldview. Black magic, all of this was a fad worldview in the 1600s among rich people. And so that's what you've got today. You just got all these fad worldviews, and you fit into them according to your ability to spend, or your ability to pretend like you have an ability to spend. It's all become Christmas, effectively. Every day is Christmas to an atheist. Why? Because every day is an opportunity to prove that they've got more than what you've got. More oppositional defiance, more money, more whatever. And that's why this guy filled my damn comment section with a 7-paragraph explanation of how wrong I am without actually telling me how I could be right. Just, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to refuse a meaningful conversation where I could acknowledge that you're right or allow you to be right after. And that's where atheists don't understand that what they're doing is going, nuh-uh, and they're not giving you anything back. And that way they're trolls. But they're not trolls like you think internet trolls, where they're just whatever you think an internet troll is. They're Viking trolls. See, something you don't know about Vikings because you don't read enough Arthur literature. You haven't read Snorri Sturluson. You haven't read the Eddas. You haven't read any of it. The sagas. None of it. And if you had, you would know that the way Vikings made their living during the winter months and during the spring months, during the fall months, the way Vikings made their money when they weren't fighting your wars for you was by posting themselves up on your bridges and forcing you to answer their riddles for their amusement before they robbed and raped you. That's just how that went. If you amuse them by knowing the answer to the riddle or by giving them the money they asked you for at the toll, they didn't bother you. That's called trolling. The word, I believe it's Scandinavian. I believe it's Norse. There's where we go. The Norse word troll is a kind of fishing. It's a kind of I believe that what you do is you sit on those caracals, I think is what they're called, those little wicker boats out in the middle of slow moving rivers, and you throw down nets. But however you do it, it might be more of a, you toss the net across the river or something and then catch everything that's in the stream, that sort of thing. But trolling is a kind of fishing. And so what atheists are doing is they're trolling. They're trolling for attention. They're being atheists, especially today. See, in the 90s, the 80s, the early aughts, until about 2016, atheists had a point they were trying to make. Atheists were trying to make a point. They were trying to make a point that you could live a good life, a philosophic good life, without also being Christian. And what they've done in the meantime is become anti-intellectual and oppositionally defiant, just like everything else in our civilization. And now they no longer have legs to stand on. Nobody really has legs to stand on. I mean, even churches no longer really have legs to stand on. It's like, I love him to death, but Pastor Mark at the church that I attend yesterday is telling us that we got to come to church, we got to be involved in the church, and then the scripture reading that he does is how you don't need to go to church. And what you need to do is you need to turn your entire day into a worship service for God, and that's called mindfulness, and that's Buddhist, so he can't do that. So they no longer even have a leg to stand on, because the religions have trademarked different aspects of mental health. And so Christianity can no longer tell you to be mindful of God. It has to say antique words like worship and glory and grace and forgiveness, words you just don't understand, because these are ancient words that never got translated properly, transliterated properly into English. Why? Because religion itself was a pursuit for the wealthy. Okay, atheism, the reason it's become ODD is because until about 2016, religion was in the West, it was for the wealthy. And everything since 2016 is a way of expressing your wealth. And so Christmas, I'm not even here to talk about Christmas, but I am here to talk about how everything has become Christmas. Everything is competing with Christmas. Why? Because Christmas is the single greatest economic holiday there is. What other... I hate internal combustion engines so much. But what other holiday by its nature generates revenue? Easter tries, because they tried in the United States. We've tried to maintain the European tradition of clothes. See, here's something that maybe if you don't live in Europe, maybe you just don't know, is that Christmas and Easter are gift-giving holidays in the United States and in the modern world today, because Christmas and Easter are when the church used to pass out your clothes for that 6 month. That's why they're gift-giving days, because the church used to give everyone gifts. And what were those gifts? Clothes, typically. And so Easter and Christmas, they became days about giving people in your family what they were going to need for the next 6 months. Something special that they were going to need: socks, underwear, hot, warm clothes, cool clothes, clean clothes. That's where all this tradition came from. And then by the 1960s, by the 1970s, 1980s, and then by the time I was a child, clothes were no longer good enough gifts to receive on Christmas. Why? Because we were no longer poor as a nation. Even poor families, if you gave socks and underwear as a gift, you were looked down upon. Why? Well, because that's a holiday, that's a child ethic holiday. That's the day that you just get to be a child relative to another person. And so what I was telling you is that I don't want to be your online stepdad. I don't want to be in a father figure position relative to you. But the internet has forced me into a weird stepfather position where, because I'm upright and because I have opinions about how humans should behave as good or bad people expect me to hold them to that. I don't love it. I don't like it a lot. I really don't love how close people walk to me. Like, I'm standing here, you don't have to walk so close to me. Especially, like, if I were having a phone conversation, it would be rude. Most people would consider it as rude to try to eavesdrop on somebody's conversation like that. And so anyway, I only turned this on. I haven't even told you what I wanted to turn this on for, and I saw somebody drop in and somebody drop back out. Thank you for being here. Sorry that I'm not entertaining. But I really only wanted to talk to you about how my spot last night, I got so warm I woke up in a panic attack, actually overheating, and then I couldn't get out of my tent. So I had I think it's called hypothermia, but I had the opposite of hyperthermia, or hyperthermia maybe. I had the opposite of hypothermia, where you're freezing to death, where at the end, when you're freezing to death, what your body does is it strips you out of all of your protective layers so that the dying just happens faster. So you're not putting yourself through a prolonged misery. I woke up last night so hot. As soon as I was able to get myself out of my sleeping bag, which I actually did have a panic attack because I couldn't get the zipper undone. I had to strip out of. That's why you watched me put on all my clothes this morning, because I threw my scarves off and threw my jacket off, and I'm sitting there, open the doors, right? Open the doors to my tent. I'm just sitting there outside, holding the neck of my shirt up and opening my shirt up off my body, like, oh my God, let me get cold again. So I am safe if I keep myself in my sleeping bag, and I keep myself in my tent and I use my sleeping bag properly. I'm not only warm, I get too warm. I did not need the hot hands that I opened last night. I opened and warmed up a hot hands just to be safe, and it ended up made my tent too warm. So all good problems to have. The I know that I didn't address all of that guy's 5 points. His main point was that he'd never heard anybody say that an atheist is an atheist because they know more about the religion and what the religion requires of you. They know so much about the religion and enough about the religion to know that you can actually not do it. It's voluntary. And so the question that I was asking is, and he also said that Aristotle was a proponent of organized religion, and he wasn't. Aristotle said that we can't know anything without having firsthand experience of it, was my point. And You atheists haven't had firsthand experience because you can't have a spiritual moment. You can't actually come face to face with God and be an atheist. You can't insist that there's no such thing as God and have touched it. Those things are incompatible. So you can't have firsthand experience of true religion and be an atheist. You can have firsthand experience of true religion and be agnostic and not understand and not know what you've done and then what you've experienced, and then not try to affect other people's worldview. But see, the thing about atheism is it's trolling. You're standing on bridges and you're telling me that I have to battle you or you won't let me pass. But here's the thing. You can't stop me. That's what you don't understand. None of you understands that you can't stop me from pursuing the religious road. And if you want to stop me as an atheist, it means you know that my life is better than yours. It means you know that my approach is better, you know my personality is better, you know that everything I'm doing is better, and I'm going to get paid for it. That's what makes you crazy. I get it. I get it. But you can't stop me.